Author Donna J. Jodhan presents The Christmas Box Set Number 2. If you have not yet listened to Donna's 12 Days of Christmas Box Set Number 1, then you owe it to yourself to do so. This box set is made of 12 wonderful stories for the Christmas holiday season. They are all filled with mystery, suspense, and they all have happy endings. Now, Donna presents her second 12 Days of Christmas box set, 12 stories with wild imaginings. Donna paints pictures of hope, peace, and a bright future for the world. She develops amazing stories that will warm and thrill the hearts of the listener. Sit back now and enjoy Donna's 12 stories. You can email your thoughts and feedback to Donna at donnajodhan@gmail.com. Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays to everyone.
Ho, 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 everybody, and happy holidays to everyone listening in. My name is Donna J. Jodhan, also known as Detective DJ and author Donna Jodhan. I hope that everybody is listening in and enjoying my episodes. I hope that they've had time, or you have had time to listen to at least one of my episodes. I know I cannot say ho 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 as loudly as our friend Santa, but I try anyway, okay? So, I just want to summarize the titles of my last 10 episodes, because now we're up to the 11th episode. We have 12, so we have 2 more to go, okay? So, my first episode was Santa's Special Christmas Sleigh. The second was The President's Christmas Package. The third was Santa's Super Christmas Kids. The fourth was Santa's Magic Marvels. The fifth was Santa's Christmas Ice Palace. The sixth was Santa's Super Christmas Dream, which I have to admit is one of my favorites. The seventh was Santa's Super Sea Rescue. The eighth was the President's Christmas Cruise. The ninth was Santa's Super Christmas Cradle. The 10th was the President's Christmas Royal Rescue. The 11th is now going to be, listen up folks, and this is a really nice one, Santa's Christmas Train Trip. And here is a description. Santa and his wife have always wanted to take a train trip at Christmas time. But due to the pressures of work, this has not been possible until this year. Find out how Santa's family planned to make this dream come true. Not just the train ride, but what Santa encounters along the way. Imagination, creativity, and dreams come true are all part of this story. Great ingredients for a wonderful Christmas holiday mystery. All right, so let's get ready for Santa's Christmas Train Trip. Part 1. Santa's Holiday Dream. Santa has always dreamed of going away on a getaway train trip at Christmas time. But thanks to Christmas holiday season pressures, this has not been possible. Santa and Mrs. Claus have had long chats about this. And oh, how they wish that it could somehow happen. But thus far, Christmas holiday season pressures have prevented this from coming true. Always last-minute dramas and glitches to fix for the holiday season. And to overcome, Santa too loves it. But he's had to overcome such things as terrible head colds, a serious bout of the COVID, a broken back and a broken leg, and most of all, interference from those so-called three wise men, also known as the Three Amigos. Santa, his family and his friends, helpers, elves, special teams, reindeer, and everyone else, and his kids most of all, have all been involved in bringing joy and cheer to the world each year. In recent years, Santa established the Santa School for special kids, where those less fortunate kids have been allowed to stay and work, and they have stayed at the North Pole to learn and to have fun. He also established the Special Santa Academy, where those kids who are especially interested in bringing peace and happiness to the world, and they have been allowed to stay at the North Pole and be involved in some of Santa's mission. The Clauses have also brought world leaders to the North Pole and have hosted them. This has been a great feat for Santa and Mrs. Claus. But one of his proudest achievements has been the development of his Animal Kingdom team. This is a team consisting of snowbirds, snowcone, and snowflake, and their fellow snowbirds, dolphins, sequin, and sea jade, and their fellow dolphins, reindeer Frosty and Misty, and their fellow reindeer, lambs, Rainbow and Raindrop, and their little lambs, and the most recent additions, Jamie and Mallory, and their fellow mermaids. Santa is especially proud of this Animal Kingdom team because they have managed to gel together so well, and they have been involved in several of Santa's missions, performing dangerous and daring missions for Santa. Now, however, and with everything under control, Santa and Mrs. Claus have turned toward dreaming of a longed-for, wanted, and wished-for train trip at Christmas time. And on an early fall evening, they are relaxing in their kitchen after having enjoyed a sumptuous supper prepared by their staff, shrimp cocktails, followed by salmon fillets baked in a tangy lemon sauce. And this has been served over rice and steamy veggies, and then a peach cobbler topped with vanilla ice cream. And to finish off, Irish coffee topped up with a bit of brandy. Lovely. Santa rubs his tummy contentedly and then retires to his comfy chair in one of the corners of their large kitchen. Then he reaches over and chooses a fiction book from one of the bookshelves close by, while Mrs. Claus sits close by knitting a baby Afghan. Santa's two favorite golden retrievers are curled up on a nearby blanket, with Yelly gnawing on a dog bone and Hamish snoozing peacefully. Santa and his wife spend a lot of time doing this on evening, often preferring to stay in their large kitchen after they've had supper, rather than retiring to their roomy family den. They have both agreed that their kitchen is one of the snuggest parts of their mansion. In another room on the North Pole compound, and on the very same evening, certain folks are meeting to put the finishing touches to a super grand surprise. One which they hope will indeed be a lovely surprise. for the intended recipient. This small group has been working long and hard to make this surprise a reality. And now the finishing touches are about to be placed on this surprise, as they all agree now to place a large bow on this surprise and then to deliver it. And this is how it is at this very moment. Part 2. Santa gets a surprise. Santa and his wife have just eaten their brunch on a cool Sunday in early fall. It's early November, and they are about ready to go off for a nap when they hear their doorbell ring. They are not expecting anyone today, and soon they hear voices in the vestibule, and Santa's brother Sandy and cousins Santa Stoyan and Santa Stefan enter. They are followed by Yelly and Hamish barking excitedly. The 3 guests are soon seated, and Sandy presents a large box to his brother and sister-in-law. The box is neatly wrapped in bright red paper, and there's a huge golden bow sitting atop the box. At first, Santa is a bit confused, and Sandy has to egg him on to open it. Oh, I wonder why. So, Santa and his wife draw close, and then they both meticulously proceed to open the oversized box. Santa cannot believe his eyes when he sees the top part of the box, and Mrs. Claus is as equally surprised. It takes Santa and his wife a few minutes to take in everything, but this is not all. At a signal from Sandy Claus, Santa's staff enter, dragging large boxes behind them, and then all bedlam breaks loose. And as Santa and his wife open box after box, Yelly and Hamish also get involved, romping around in the paper, piling up on the floor, barking and jumping, while Sandy, Stefan, and Stoyan busy themselves shooting videos of the moment, which they plan to share with Santa's staff, his elves, his helpers, friends, and everyone in the family, and the special kids. The bedlam continues for some time, and at the end of it all, Santa and his family have given Santa and Mrs. Claus a once-in-a-lifetime dream train trip for this Christmas holiday season, a well-planned trip that will take them to various corners of the world. Several of Santa's and Mrs. Claus's favorite corners of the world. Everything that they would need with this dream train trip come true. As Santa and Mrs. Claus would later reflect, it was a well-planned trip with everything provided to make a dream come true. Santa and his wife cannot believe that this was all planned right under their noses, and they never ever had a clue. Not even Santa's staff knew, nor anyone else. And this is how it was at this very moment. Part 3. Santa boards the train, and on a mid-December morning, with snowflakes chasing each other around, and with fresh, cool winds blowing briskly and swirling around, Santa and Mrs. Claus and several of his special kids get ready to board the sleek-looking train, which has been especially designed and developed for this special trip. It was Santa Claus and cousins Stefan and Stoyan who came together to design this special train, and friends Nicholas and Marco, who developed all of the special devices and gadgets for this train. They would all later reflect how very proud they were to have been able to carry out this very special feat right under the noses of Santa and Mrs. Claus. Santa's elves, helpers, and staff all worked overtime to ensure that Santa would not need to worry about leaving work behind. Then, complete secrecy was implemented to ensure that no one, not even the world, would know that Santa was going to be away for this Christmas holiday season. And as they would often say, however, no plan is ever foolproof. But now it is time for everyone to watch as Santa and his entourage get ready to board the special holiday train. Oh yes, Santa and Mrs. Claus are greeted by their staff very warmly as they board their train. His kids are already there, and Santa shows his kids on a very special North Pole contest that he ran. And the contest entailed an essay that the kids had to write, saying why they felt that they should be chosen to go along on this special train trip, and to make a 5-minute video on how they plan to continue being a part of Santa's special community and how their contributions could help Santa's missions, especially to the worldwide missions. And no trip would be complete without Santa's dogs, Yelly and Hamish. They are simply beside themselves, barking and howling, and they would be allowed to roam the train freely throughout the entire train trip. Oh yes, noise. Noise is everywhere. Santa and Mrs. Claus are busy greeting everyone. Staff bustle around making last-minute adjustments. Kids laughing and shouting to each other. And Yelly and Hamish running back and forth down the aisles of the train. Oh boy, it is such a festive scene. And then there comes the announcement over the intercom for everyone to take their seats, because the train will be moving off in about 5 minutes, and it sure does. A loud whistle is blown 3 times. Then the train slowly starts to move. And as it does, the train's bellowing whistle could be heard in the immediate surroundings, echoing over and over again. And this is how it was at this very moment. Part 4. Ringing phones are ignored. Santa's staff, who have been left behind to man home base, stand on both sides of the track, and they cheer loudly as the train departs. Those kids, helpers, and elves who have been left behind do the same, cheering and waving and clapping. Rudolph and his reindeer are also present, and they fly over the departing train in their sleigh, saluting as they fly by. And then the train is finally out of the Santa station and on its way. Time to settle down for the passenger. The winter sun sits high in the sky, shining down on the sleek red and silver train and reflecting off of the train's many windows. It never fails, however, and as Santa would later reflect, phones start ringing, but everyone has been forewarned to simply ignore these ringing phones. Santa, however, takes a sneak peek at his iPhone, which he kept on for the time being. He purposely did this for the time being. He sees that both Marco and Nicholas are sending him bon voyage messages, and there are texts from his dear friends Chris Sprinkle and Josh Reisman wishing him a happy holiday. Of course, the staff has implemented special emergency lines to deal with any special emergencies. Soon, staff members are bustling up and down the aisle with huge, thick books for each of the passengers, and these books contain everything that they would need to know for their train trip. And then it is noon, and the first meal of the train trip is served. After this, most of the passengers settle down either to take a nice long nap, or they content themselves to look through the windows at the passing fields and beautiful sceneries as the train drives by, or they chat among themselves. Santa and Mrs. Claus retire to their luxurious train car to rest for a while, and Yelly and Hamish follow and settle down for their mid-afternoon naps. And this is how it was at this very, very moment. Part 5. The Winter Wonderland. Santa Claus and his cousins have planned what Santa and Mrs. Claus would be seeing on their train trip, and there are screens set up at vantage positions on the train so that passengers could follow along. In addition, there are regular announcements over the intercom, and the passengers can also follow along with their books. The first wonder does not take long to appear: a winter wonderland. The Santa train enters a very thick forest, and the trees are all snow-covered and gaily decorated with all kinds of Christmas decorations. The fragrance of cedar and pine wafts. It is a sweet fragrance, but that is just the tip of the iceberg for this winter wonderland. Santa and his friends see so many other things. They see bears having a party, hundreds of bears dancing, playing, and frolicking amongst the trees, and they are all dressed up in brightly colored Christmas costumes, and they are wearing Santa hats. They pause as the train passes, and they salute in unison. And then Santa and his friends see wolves having their own party in a grassy clearing of the forest. It's in the middle of the forest. They too stop to salute the train. Then come the lions at a midnight picnic. Then the tigers and the elephants. The passengers are beside themselves at seeing all of this, and as they would later reflect, they cannot believe how each group of animals stopped to salute the train as it passes by. And there is more to come. The train stops at an opening in the forest, and there for everyone to see is a huge ice floe. And on it, some seals are playing a game of ice hockey, while others are performing some sort of ice dance, where they are balancing balls on their noses. They briefly pause to greet the train. Some of the seals saunter out to Santa's train and they bang on the doors and the windows. They are pulling huge sleds behind them, and they have gifts for the passenger, sealskin jackets. And then there are the penguins, busily engaged in their own games, skating around, riding on mini snowmobile, and driving ice carts. Some of them are also riding around on mini ice sleds. Everyone is simply taken aback, especially those kids who cannot believe their eyes. The penguins also have gifts for Santa and his friends, toys that they have made for the kids, and trinkets for the adults. And then the surprise of all, Snowcone and Snowflake and their fellow snowbirds are also there. They are Santa's beloved snowbirds. They perform air acrobats, playing basketball and soccer, both in the air and on the ice. Snowcone and Snowflake also have gifts for Santa and his friends. And then the train is off again, bringing the passengers to a handsome ice hotel, where they spend the evening, leaving the next morning for the next phase of their train trip. Everyone is refreshed, excited, and looking forward to today. Santa has no idea what he is going to see, but he and Mrs. Claus simply cannot wait. And the train leaves in mid-morning and begins the next phase. And this is how it is at this very, very moment. Part 6, Santa's Summer Supper Party. And what a change! First, the winter wonderland. And now, as the train travels quickly and smoothly on its way, it soon enters an entirely different landscape. The wintry forest and the ice floes soon disappear into the distance, and it is replaced by scenes of lush grasslands with cows, goats, and sheep grazing peacefully in the fields. There are streams close by, and brooks and rivers, with kids and adults frolicking, and the people and the animals all salute as the train goes by. Some of them are curious about the passing train and stare after it as it goes by. Santa and Mrs. Claus would later reflect to each other that the parade of the horses was simply magnificent. It was simply superb. Ah, yes. So many parades took place on this phase of the train trip. First came the horses all dressed in Santa's colors: red, gold, green, and silver. They marched in time to band music, and they were so well behaved. Then came the floats with the nursery rhyme theme to them, all gaily decorated in Christmas colors, and the Disney characters made their appearance: Mickey, Minnie, Daffy, and Donald, Cinderella, Snow White and her 7 dwarfs, Mulan, the Little Mermaid, and all of the characters from Aladdin and The Lion King, and so much more. The kids especially loved this part of the trip and simply could not help themselves as they leaned out of the windows, waving and shouting. The final parade was one of motorcycles and bicycles, mini cars and mini trucks, all blowing their horns and ringing their bells and saluting the train as they rode by. Then the last part of this phase was spent on a magnificent beach around a campfire with Santa and Mrs. Claus roasting marshmallows and serving cups of hot chocolate. Santa and his friends spent a wonderful night at a wonderful beach house, and the next morning they boarded their train and were off once more. No one really knew what was in store for this magnificent train trip, but expectations were very high. Some of the kids had even managed to take a quick swim in a nearby lake, and nothing is complete without gifts for everyone. Swimsuits, colorful beach towels and beach bags, snorkels, goggles and fins, and kits of Legos with building blocks. Oh yes, and this is how it was at this very moment. Part 7. Santa's Sweet Spring. Of course, Santa's two cousins, Santa's Stoyan and Santa's Stefan, and his brother Sandy have planned this trip so as to surprise Santa and Mrs. Claus, and they have certainly succeeded up until now. Oh yes, they have managed to surprise Santa and Mrs. Claus all the way thus far. Santa thinks that he has it all figured out, but not really. And the kids also try to figure out what will come next, but thus far they've not been able to do that. The train travels smoothly and quietly along the way. Everyone is so happy and contented to look through the windows of the train, and most even forget to check their devices. But then internet access is limited, so that TV news is also limited, and TV news is actually shut out, and passengers can only access the internet for about an hour or so in the morning, and then for 1 hour at night. Truth be told, most are so busy taking photos with their iDevices and chatting amongst themselves to even miss the good old internet. Santa and Mrs. Claus go overboard to keep their friends entertained, and the staff do their part to provide sumptuous, healthy snacks and yummy meals. And they also help to keep everyone occupied with all kinds of games. The train travels along, and then passengers awake on a spring-like morning. Beautiful fields of flowers and grass, and trees loaded with beautiful birds singing to each other and calling to each other. Birds of beautiful colors, and they flap their wings in salute as the train goes by. Lush meadows with sheep grazing, and then the train slows down to welcome Santa's lambs, Rainbow and Raindrop. And they come leading hundreds of other little lambs. Raindrop and Rainbow come out of nowhere, and they stand at the door of the train. The door opens and they saunter aboard. Santa and Mrs. Claus greet them warmly, and for the next hour, Rainbow and Raindrop walk briskly up and down the aisles of the train, allowing the kids to pet and play with them. Then they hop off the train and the passengers are allowed to disembark, and they are treated to a sumptuous picnic. All kinds of sandwiches, cakes, tarts, wraps, fruit salad bowls, ice cream treats, and sweet, cool drinks. Then magically, there are gifts for everyone. Spring clothing, board games, electronic games, and spring jackets, and much more. Then the passengers continue back to the train, and the train travels on. It stops for the evening at a beautiful clearing in the woods. But this time the passengers remain on board, and most of them decided to catch up on some sleep. But not before the train is paid a visit by packs of wolves and foxes, and they salute as they walk by the train. Santa decides to read for a bit before switching off his light, but Mrs. Claus goes to bed, and this is how it was at this very moment. Part 8. Santa's Fall Flavors. And in the morning the train is off once more, traveling along the way, and the passengers see more fields, roads crowded with cars and trucks, little houses and cottages, and then they travel through a city with very tall buildings and towers. Then the train is once again traveling through wide open field and stops at a small town for the night. It is now morning again, and as everyone would later reflect, how did the train get here? No one felt or saw when it traveled overnight. Spring has now turned into fall, and the beautiful fall colors of red, orange, and yellow surround the train and its passenger. Then Santa and his friends receive two very unexpected guests. Ah, yes, it is Frosty and Misty, Santa's special reindeer. They appear at the main windows of the train, tapping lightly on the windows and smiling broadly. Santa and Mrs. Claus greet them warmly, hugging them, and then they board the train to greet the kids. All bedlam breaks loose as the reindeer entertain the kids for a while. Then they lead the passengers to a beautiful playground. The air is fresh and cool, but there are fall jackets and fall clothes for everyone. Santa and his friends spend most of the day enjoying the outdoors, and at night they are entertained at a hotel by musicians and dancers, all decked out in Christmas fall costumes. And then the train is off again in the morning to the next wonder that Santa Claus and his cousins have planned for this special train trip. And as the train leaves the fall flavors behind, one of the last things that the passengers see is a beautiful lake with water as smooth as glass, and on the water are hundreds and hundreds of swans, ducks, and Canada geese. Most of them are looking towards the train and saluting with their beaks and their wings, and the passengers can hear them clucking and calling as the train goes by. And this is how it was at this very moment. Part 9. Santa has his own surprise, and it is just a few days before the big day. And unknown to Sandy Claus and his cousins, Santa and Mrs. Claus and some of the elves and helpers have their own surprise in store for the traveling train. The day dawns brightly, and Santa and Mrs. Claus are already up and bustling around. Their elves and helpers are with them, and they are getting things ready. And nothing is complete without Yelly and Hamish kick things off by racing through the cars where the kids are sleeping, and they proceed to wake everyone up with loud barks and playful leaps and jumps. They even have playful nips for the kids. Soon everyone is ready and getting ready for a new day. They are all fully awake. The train stands on an open road, and presto! There are hot air balloons waiting, and there are drones also waiting close by. And oh, yes, some things looking like giant birds with wings. Oh, at first the kids are not sure as to how to react, but then Santa's booming voice comes over the intercom, inviting everyone to step outside. First, though, there is a delicious breakfast of pancakes, eggs, sausages, and bacon, fruit juice, and fresh fruit, followed by warm cocoa and warm tea. Then everything is magically sorted out, and soon kids and adults are enjoying magnificent hot air balloon rides. Gentle, sweet, and so very hard to believe. The hot air balloons rise gracefully into the clear blue sky and take their passengers for a ride of a lifetime, darting in and out of the fluffy white clouds and sailing effortlessly across the skies. And then they travel over calm green sea, babbling brooks, and lovely, lovely rivers. And placidly, how picturesque. And what the train travelers would later learn is that while all of this was going on, the train traveled unobserved to a very different location, so that when the air balloons landed, the passengers were deposited at a very different landscape. How magical. But after several hours in the sky, the kids were just too tired and too tuckered out to have noted. Besides, the day was not complete without the drone drag races. Oh, yes. So much fun was had with kids learning how to control their drones and then race each other across the skies. Oh, what such fun! Drone races. Of course, some of the drones got lost in the drone activities, but that was just quite okay with everyone. And how about those unreal airbirds? The kids learned how to fly these new inventions courtesy of Santa's dear friends Marco and Nicholas. Most of the kids simply could not catch themselves with this new invention, and they were just beside themselves with so much laughter, excitement, and so much more. These inventions and these adventures. And then it was night, and Santa and Mrs. Claus had one last surprise for their friends before they all retired. Yes, a surprise visit from Sandy Claus and cousins Santa Stoyan and Santa Stefan. But not even Santa was prepared for the next surprise. And as he would later reflect to his wife, Sandy and his cousins simply outdid themselves. And this is how it was at this very moment. Part 10. Santa's Moon Dance Lessons. And as everyone would later reflect, Sandy Claus and his cousins sure pulled off a coup. One that even took Santa by complete surprise. While everyone was having fun with air balloons, drones, and air birds, Sandy and cousins had switched trains, parking a replica of the train in the very secret spot for the next phase, and moving the original train to another secret spot for the next surprise. And Sandy and cousins used the hot air balloons to take everyone to the secret spot, and no one really noticed what was going on. Not even wise old Santa. And early the next morning, everyone is wakened by a loud bang, followed by the repeated blowing of a whistle that continues to sound until everyone is awakened. And this is followed by beautiful Christmas holiday music coming over the intercom and reverberating through the train. Then everyone is asked to look through the windows of the train, and lo and behold, there are huge neon signs with flashing messages that say, "Welcome to the moon." And today is the day before Christmas Eve. Unbelievable. But now here it is, and the fun must begin. Santa is in total shock, but there is yet another surprise awaiting the passengers. Sandy and cousins have stayed on, but some new guests have arrived. It is Marco and Nicholas and their families, standing at the entrance of the train and smiling broadly up at Santa and his friend. And the fun begins all over again. More gifts for everyone, more warm greetings, and Marco and Nicholas introduce their families to everyone else. And now it is time for those very special lessons. Yes, Santa and his friends are all going to dancing school to learn how to do some of the more popular moon dances. First, however, everyone is given a tour of the moon, but it is not the entire moon, but nevertheless a tour to remember. Before starting out, everyone needs to dress in special moon suits that have been created for them by Marco and Nicholas and others. Moon suits in Christmas colors, suits, hats, boots, and special moon walking sticks. Santa and his friends notice that it is very cold indeed, cold but bearable. There is snow on the ground, and a clean white carpet of snow greets the visitors. As they step off their train, Santa and his friends board large moon crafts, and special tour guides give them a guided tour. The moon crafts are called moon cats and are warm, spacious, and cozy inside. They see such magnificent moon views and are even able to view planet Earth from special telescopes and binoculars. Then they view the Sun, Mars, Venus, and other planets. Such magnificent view and a lifetime of memories. And now it is time to visit the marvelous Moon Hall. And what a marvel to behold! Nothing that anyone could ever have expected. Moon lanterns light up the magnificent hall, and it is decorated in Christmas festivity. There is a gigantic moon cake sitting in the middle of the moon hall, and it is adorned with such things as moon dancers in moon costume, mini ice cap, houses, angels, stars, bells, and wreaths. And as Santa Claus and his cousins look on, they are so gratified that Santa and his friends are enjoying it all, and that Marco and Nicholas and their families are also joining in. The kids are especially having a super time, making friends with each other, greeting each other, and exploring together. Then the moon dance lessons begin in earnest. Santa and his friends learn the moon waltz, the moon walk, and the moon crawl, the moon cha-cha, and oh yes, the moon leap. And by the end of the day, everyone is doing various versions of moon dances. Everyone is exhausted by the end of it all. And going off to bed for everyone is no problem at all. And there are more surprises to come. And this is how it was at this very, very moment. Part 11. Santa and friends hang out with the stars. Christmas Eve dawns bright and promising. The passengers are all awake and ready to go. And as tired as they are, it really does not matter. Santa and Mrs. Claus have things to do. Marco and Nicholas are preparing some last-minute things for Christmas Eve night, and their families are off to explore. Santa's two friends, Chris Grindle and Josh Reisman, magically appear aboard the train, bearing more gifts for everyone. And in one secret compartment of the train, some folks are putting finishing touches to their surprise. The compartment is cluttered with all kinds of audio and video machines, along with some open craft kits which are being used to make some puppets. And there are other surprises. Christmas Eve night, and now it is time for Santa and his friends to do something very special. And as everyone would later reflect, Sandy and his cousins and Marco and Nicholas and their friends have simply outdone themselves once again. And oh yes, once again, everyone dresses for this event in special Christmas air suit, and these are suits that make them invisible to anyone looking up at the night sky. Sandy Claus and his cousins, along with Marco and Nicholas, and Chris and Josh take charge here. Time to take off. Santa and Mrs. Claus go first, walking through the exit doors of train, pressing a special button on their remotes as they exit. The others follow, and soon everyone is rising into the fresh night sky. What a magnificent feeling! What a sight to behold! The moon shines brightly down on the rising group, and they all look up, saluting and bowing to the moon in unison. And soon they are traveling towards the twinkling stars. Santa lets out a huge ho, 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 and the rest follow. Soon the heavens are filled with sounds of ho, 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 and everyone is practically singing with tons of laughter and joy. They rise to meet the twinkling stars, and magically the stars line up to greet them, saluting and bowing to Santa and his friends. Then the stars have their own concert with Santa and his friends. They form a circle around Santa and friends. Then they proceed to perform star dances and air acrobatics. Then wonders and wonder of wonders. Santa and his friends join the stars in their star dances. A little while later, Sandy and his cousins use their megaphones to grab the attention of the frolicking group, and they are asked to look eastwards. And there, approaching quickly in the distance, are practically thousands and thousands of Santa sleighs, headed by Rudolph and his reindeer. Santa starts to clap, and everyone else follows, clapping and cheering. Rudolph pauses his sleigh and greets Santa and Mrs. Claus. Then he and his reindeer begin to throw confetti across the way, showering Santa and his friends and tossing gifts to them. Then Rudolph is off to tend to his Christmas duties, and the other sleighs follow, saluting and cheering and shouting. Santa and his friends return the cheers and greetings, and the kids are simply beside themselves with glee. And then it is all over, and everyone manages to drag themselves off to bed. What a night! What an incredible train trip that is almost at an end. Everyone knows it, but there is just one more day before things come to an end, and this is how it was at this very moment. Part 12. Final surprises for Santa and his friends. And it is Christmas morning, and Santa and his friends have been transferred from the very special train to a waiting yacht, a magnificent yacht that is anchored out in a very calm sea. Everyone clambers quietly aboard, and they are shown to their room. But just two more surprises just waiting to be unwrapped. It is now mid-afternoon, and the yacht is on its way back to the North Pole. Santa and his friends receive special visits from Jamie and Mallory and their mermaid friends, and from dolphins Sequin and Seajade and their dolphin friends. Sandy and Stoyan and Stefan arranged it all. The mermaids entertained the weary passengers with songs and dances, while the dolphins carry out their own dolphin act. And as the yacht travels, fishes could be seen jumping close by and saluting with their fins and tail. Sea turtles swim close to the ship and salute as well, while thousands of seabirds fly by saluting, and sharks and whales also join in saluting as the yacht goes by. And as Christmas night creeps in, Santa's kids present their surprise to Sandy and his cousins, and to Santa and Mrs. Claus and his friend. Ah, yes, videos and audios of the entire train trip, replicas of air balloons, drones, and airbirds, mini replicas of the train that they traveled in, and finally, puppets of Santa and Mrs. Claus doing a moon dance, and puppet replicas of Marco and Nicholas, and puppets of Sandy Claus, his cousins, and Kris Kringle and Josh Reisman, all doing various forms of moon dances. Santa was taken completely by surprise and cried with pleasure at it all. But he had his own surprise for everyone. And what could that be? They had to wait until they reached the North Pole to find out. The end. I hope you enjoyed this 11th episode of mine, Santa's Christmas Train Trip. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed bringing it to you. I hope that you're having a great holiday season, greeting each other, sharing, giving, receiving, laughing, enjoying, spreading peace and love throughout the world, because right now we really need it. Take care, have a great day, and stay tuned for my 12th and final episode.